You're listening to Boobies and Newbies, brought to you by the Frolic Podcast Network. This episode is sponsored by Love at First, an uplifting and unforgettable story of love and second chances by Kate Claiborne. Whether you're a seasoned romance reader or a complete newbie, chances are good you've heard the name Kate Claiborne before. Kate's quirky, smart, swoon-worthy romantic comedies have earned an enormous amount of acclaim, landing on dozens of best-of lists and receiving praise from fellow authors including Sarah McLean, Jasmine Guillory, Alicia Ray, and Sonali Dev. In fact, her previous book, Love Lettering, was featured on best of lists in Entertainment Weekly, Bustle, Amazon.com, and more, and it was one of my top 2020 reads as well. Love at First is a sparkling and tender novel full of bickering neighbors, surprise reunions, and the mysterious power of love. Plus, it takes place in Chicago, one of my favorite cities on earth, so you know I was excited to read this one. What I love most about Love at First is the fun, original take on Romeo and Juliet, which in this case begs the question of love at first listen? Please, please, please check it out. It's the super sweet slow burn I needed to warm up in the dead of Minnesota winter, and I know that fans of Christina Lauren and Emily Henry will absolutely adore it. Love at First is available now wherever books are sold. And now, back to the show. Welcome to Boobies and Newbies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today marks a first for the podcast. My guest and I will be reviewing our very first Audible original audiobook today. And longtime listeners of the podcast will know that I am not an audiobook person in general. However, it seemed only fitting to give one a go for March's digital love theme. Basically, my own personal digital love story with digital love. It's very meta. But anyway, today's guest is my own personal IT guy, Adam. Adam is married to one of my very best friends and former guest of the pod, Michelle. You can often find her on the podcast discussing cowboys with me. I love them both dearly, and I can't believe it's taken this long to record something together. But in any case, please join me in welcoming Adam.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing? And then, I don't know, I'm expecting a response.
Yeah, like pause, wait for response, and go. All right, cool. Yeah.
Hello, Kelly. How are you?
I'm getting by. It's March. I don't know how that happened. We both have birthdays on the horizon because we're both Aries.
We do. Corona quarantine birthday number 2 coming up for us.
Isn't that nuts? Like, I think, yeah, because March is like the first round of coronavirus birthdays, part 2.
Yeah. And all the people last year that had their birthdays in February are only just having that.
Yeah, I don't want to hear none of y'all complaining who were born in January or February.
Little did we know, right?
It's true. I know we had no idea. Are you guys planning anything for your birthday? I know end of March, right?
Yeah, March 23rd. So staying home and not going out places with people. That's pretty much our plan. Same thing we've been doing the last 300 some odd days. So yeah.
It's like it's been your birthday every day for a year.
That or Groundhog Day. I don't know.
It's funny because like I keep thinking like, well, what can I do like for my birthday to like, I don't know, make it feel like it's something, especially because I'm turning 30. But at the same time, I'm just like, I would much rather stay at home, keep things low key, and wait until there is a time again when we can celebrate and do it proper.
Yeah, just go out there, rub all the different COVIDs together, make super COVID, throw caution to the wind. No. That's pretty much the same we've been doing.
I've seen a lot more people out lately without masks. Like, I don't know if it's because they've started releasing the vaccines or what, but I feel like in the last week or so, it's been like a sudden influx of like, I'll go on a walk and I'll see not like one person jogging or something, but like a group of people walking together without masks.
Yeah, and I mean that's one thing, but it's like you should still have it on for the other people you're going to encounter while you're out there. Because I've definitely been seeing the same thing here in California. It's just people are like, oh yeah, well no, I'm tired of it now. I'm just gonna not wear it. It's like, no, you still need to wear it. Please wear it. Please get away from me.
I know. Well, and now that the weather is starting to get nicer, I'm assuming everywhere, but it's been lovely in Minnesota the last, week or so. And so having this audiobook to listen to was kind of a nice excuse to like get outside and take a little walk, and I'd listen for like an hour at a time and soak up the sun. So I can see what the appeal is, but I know we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but what's your experience with audiobooks in general?
So I really haven't had much experience with audiobooks. I mean, of course, for years I've been hearing, the Audible ads and stuff on, podcasts and, even on the radio and stuff. But never really listened to one. And I mean, I like the old school, kind of Orson Welles radio drama kind of thing. So this kind of feels like a sort of throwback to that. And I've since started listening because I have like a credit or two because I did like the free trial to listen to this one.
Yeah, me too.
And then it accidentally became a full-time thing because I forgot to cancel it. So I have it for another month. So I started listening to World War Z, and that has like an entire cast of the Max Brooks book. It has like an entire cast. It's got, like Mark Hamill and Simon Pegg is in there. It's got a bunch of different people. But that definitely plays out more also like very much like a radio drama kind of thing. So that's kind of cool. I liked that.
I think that's what I'm into as well, because I think the reason I've tried and not really gotten into audiobooks in the past has been, I feel like they go a little bit slower than like I could actually like sit down and read a physical book. Like I could sit down and read a book into the span of a few hours. But if an audiobook is like 7 hours long, I'm just like, wait, what? Like this is great. And then of course you have to enjoy the voices. Like, I mean, that's such a major part of what you're listening to. It's the same with podcasts. You have to either love the content or love the creators. But this one I thought was different though. And I think I can get more into the format if I do listen to the ones like the one we're talking about today, and like World War Z you're talking about, where there's like more of a cast element to it.
Yeah, I think it would be a little bit different listening to just a single person. Although I do remember when I was in summer camp listening to all of the Harry Potter books on audio tape, because they would just play them in the bands that we were in when we were going places. And that was all done by one guy, but he was like a voice actor, so he did all of the different voices for like, he's doing like Professor McGonagall talking to Dumbledore, and you're like, and also reading just the actual page too. So I guess, I mean, I've seen it done both, or heard it done both ways, I guess.
Yeah, actually, now that you mentioned it, I think my only other experience with audiobooks in general has been when my family and I used to take road trips when I was a kid, and we would go to the library where you could check out books on tape.
Oh my God, do you remember how big those were? They were like these giant, they were like those big trays, right?
Yes. And it would be like if you got the CDs, it would be like 8 CD discs, like for one story, and you would be riding in the car and like, oh, now you got to take out one and put in the next one. It was like watching Titanic. Yeah, right? Exactly. But I feel like that's the only other time I've actually like sat down or been doing something and listened to an audiobook, like the entire thing. And so this was a new experience for me, but I'm with you. I like the like teleplay, the radio play like format of like having multiple actors and everything. So
and there's even some sound effects in the back, like, subtle. It wasn't too much to like take you out of it, but it was like a little bit that kind of adds that, like they're in like a restaurant or like a crowded area or something like that.
Yes. Yes, I'm here for it. Like I will listen to these versions. And I know that there are previous books we've discussed on the podcast that have audiobook versions. In fact, I'm pretty sure Emma Chase's Getting Schooled was also an Audible original before it was published in paperback. So I'd be kind of curious to go back and maybe listen to some of them. I think it was either last year or the year before, there was a big one that came out in romance that was The AI Who Loved Me by Alyssa Cole. And that was similar in that they had multiple people in the cast. Like Mindy Kaling was in it. Regina King was in it. So, yeah.
That seems to be a thing that a lot of actors sort of start doing on the side. Like I know, like I follow like Will Wheaton on Instagram. And he posts a lot about doing like audiobooks and stuff, doing narration for them. So I think cool. it's like a side gig for a lot of actors.
Well, and what a perfect thing to be doing more of right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So
I wouldn't be surprised if we have a larger influx of audiobooks in the next, year or so, if that's what people are able to work on.
Yeah, and it's a pretty minimal setup too. You just need a quiet place and a microphone and your script, and you're good to go.
Absolutely. Well, without further delay, let me introduce the book we're going to be talking about today, and that is Call Me Maybe by Cara Bastone. I'm pretty sure it is Bastone. I know I'm terrible with names, but I did see Cara speak on a virtual panel at some point in 2020. So if memory serves me correctly, it's Bastone. And this book is narrated by Lucy Christian and Neil Helligers. Okay. Yeah, why not? It kind of sounds like a mayonnaise, like some sort of.
And they're all out of Hellmann's. Helligers.
Yeah, gotta get your Helligers. And this contemporary rom-com was published as an Audible original in October 2020. It's available for free if you are an Audible member, or like Adam and I, if you're not an Audible member, you can download the app for a free 2-week trial. And then go from there and forget that you were doing a free trial and start paying money and become an Audible subscriber for life.
Keep an eye on those cancellation dates, kids.
I have to mark them on my phone calendar as like a reminder. Otherwise, I just completely forget. And then I'm like I'm paying for Audible.
Yep. There you go. All of a sudden you're like, what is this? Oh, it's me being dumb.
Well, and this is it is an Audible original, and it has not been published as a Kindle book or paperback. However, that would not surprise me if that happened in the future, just because that's kind of what I've seen from a lot of these Audible originals, is that they start as a story on Audible, but then eventually, maybe like a few months later to a year later, transition to also being available as an ebook. So
it's interesting.
Do you want to...
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just interesting they go from the audiobook to the written book and not the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, you know what? I asked Emma Chase about that, another author, when we I forget if it was a recording, or I think it was when we did an Instagram live, and I asked her, like, is there a different process when you're writing for an Audible original, knowing that it's going to be an Audible original as opposed to a book first? And she said that you basically write 90% dialogue.
That makes sense.
So then to me, it's like a whole other process to then take what you've created to be basically like a radio play and adapt it to be a full-length novel.
I would think they just basically copy and paste the script. Here you go.
And then fill in the gaps.
Yeah, just fill in the little bits in between, add a little more exposition, and you're good to go.
Yeah, for sure. But like I said, this one is different from other audiobooks I've listened to. I'm sure the people who regularly listen to audiobooks are like, nah, bitch, this is all the books I listen to, is them having lots of dialogue. But I just know that in my experience of listening to audiobooks, what I have sampled in the past has been very, narration heavy as opposed to dialogue heavy. Yeah. And I like the dialogue.
Yeah, it felt more like almost kind of like eavesdropping on someone's conversation as opposed to listening to like someone tell a story in this sense.
And who doesn't like eavesdropping on people's conversations? Like, come on.
Vacuum that grass.
Vacuum it all up. We had to have at least one My Worst Date shout out, right?
Absolutely. Great podcast.
We love them. We love them to bits. It's so funny. I just had somebody reach out to me saying that they saw our live show with My Worst Date in February of, I want to say it was 2019. And I was like, oh my God, it's been a day and a half since that. Whew.
Yikes. Yeah, it has been a while. Back in the before time.
In the before time. When we went to the theater.
Went out and breathed the raw air.
Yeah, it'll happen again. We'll get there. Don't you worry. But okay, let me give everyone the not so brief synopsis for this book available on goodreads.com. Let me tell you, for a book that is an audio only story that, granted, isn't, I feel like it's on the shorter side of things as far as audiobooks go.
Yes.
It's got a pretty lengthy synopsis. So maybe this will bring back some memories and refresh everything for you, Adam. Here we go. Paint your toes. Pick up the wrong coffee and bagel order. Drive from Brooklyn to Jersey in traffic so slow you want to tear your hair out. It's amazing all the useless things I can accomplish while on hold for 3 hours with customer service. 3 hours when I should be getting the Date-in-a-Box website ready to launch at the Big Business Expo in a few days. Except my shiny new website is glitching, and my inner rage monster is ready to scorch some earth when he finally picks up. Not the robot voice I expected, but a real live human named Cal. By the way, in this synopsis, they spell Cal's name C-A-L, and they very specifically in the book make it known that he spells it with a K. I just want everyone to know that.
Yeah, that was something I was a little confused about while listening to it as well.
All right, carrying on. He's surprisingly helpful and really knows his stuff, even if he's a little awkward, in an adorable way. And suddenly I'm flirting with him, and he's flirting back. And suddenly it's been hours and we're still on the phone talking and ordering each other takeout while he troubleshoots my website. And suddenly we're exchanging numbers and sending texts and DMs every day, leaving voicemails. Who even does that anymore? And suddenly, this is a lot of suddenlies, and suddenly I'm wondering if it's possible for two people to fall in love at first talk. Oh, God.
Wow.
I'm not done. I mean, I'm still going, but I just had to pause at that line because love at first talk. Whew, all right. Because I'm falling hard. Vera, and then we transition from Vera's single person point of view to third person for some reason. Vera Hoffman has just days to make sure her website for her new Date-in-a-Box business launches. When the darn thing glitches, she calls her IT company and connects with Cal Cantola. An intense week of phone calls, DMs, voice messages, and texts ensue. And in between troubleshooting, these two start to develop feelings. We already know all of this.
They just...
But will their systems be compatible when they actually meet face to face? Okay, I'm done.
It's weird that the synopsis decides to say the same thing twice from two different points of view.
Yeah, it's like they wrote out the one that's like an excerpt from the book from her point of view, and then they're like, just in case that's not enough to get you going, let's put in this extra paragraph to sum it all up. Like, very weird.
We wrote both. Which one should we use? Just use them both.
Just put them both in. Just put them both in. People can pick and choose what they want. Oh my gosh, that is weird. I've never read something like that before, but okay, so fairly accurate, I feel like. We've got Vera, we've got Cal, who spells his name with a K, not a C, let's be clear. And we've got a lot of phone conversations over it's not a long period of time, isn't it? Only like a few days?
I think it's about a week total is where it is. I think it
Okay.
starts on like a Monday and it ends on the Saturday of that week there. Or Saturday
Oh, yeah.
Saturday of that week, yeah.
Because she has that expo on the weekend.
Mhm,
That's right.
Yeah, that's the ticking clock.
Oh, yeah. We got it. We got that clock going. So, all right, Adam, overall impressions. What do you think?
Overall, I liked it, and I think that it was an interesting first step into audiobooks, not having listened to too many of them. Uh,
Yeah.
that's pretty much what I would say on book reports when I was a kid. It's just, I liked it. And then my teachers would have to say to elaborate. I thought it was interesting.
Elaborate,
Yeah.
Adam.
I liked it, and I liked I found the characters overall, they're pretty relatable. They seem like normal people. There was definitely some points in it where I felt like it really dragged, that they didn't need to spend as much time focusing on. There's a good 3 or 4 chapters, I think, where they're just talking about how much they're crushing on each other, and you're like, oh my god, I get it. Like, can we move on?
Right.
It's like, I get it. You guys like each other,
We all know.
Yeah. Those parts maybe could have moved a little faster. But overall, once it got through that, I felt it got more interesting again. And I did like all the characters, and I can identify with aspects of both of them.
Oh, fabulous. Because I was going to ask, as an IT man yourself, which, by the way, I absolutely did not consider when choosing this book. I feel like the books choose me and my guests more than I choose them at this point. But did you find yourself, identifying with Cal?
Yes, and that was actually something I was going to compliment you on. Is you're good at picking a book that speaks to me, because this is all about like IT interactions with people on the phone, and God damn if that hasn't been my last year. So because I do work in IT.
Although I'm sure, obviously you have a lovely wife, so I like to hope that none of your conversations have led to anything as salacious.
No, and I gotta say, they're on, I think their first phone call, they're on for, what does it say at the end? It's like 9 hours.
It's like 9 hours.
My God, fucking kill me. Being on any phone call, much less a customer service call, for 8 hours. Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't want to talk to anybody for 8 hours.
No, I don't.
Yeah, that's it's a lot. It's a lot for sure. I'm with you though. I feel like we're both saying, as people who are clearly newbies to audiobooks in general, that we were both like interested enough in the format to want to pursue listening to other audiobooks. So I mean, to me, that's like a job well done on behalf of both the writer and the narrators.
Yeah, and I could see how it can go badly though. If you have a narrator you maybe don't like, or you don't necessarily like the person's voice reading it, you're gonna have a hard time making it through like a 14-hour audiobook with that person narrating.
Yes.
But yeah, no, it was good.
I will say I absolutely loved the woman who voiced Vera. I really loved her voice. I loved her tone. I loved the character. It's probably because I saw so much of myself in Vera. When it came to Cal, it's not that he has a bad voice. It's not, I'm sure many people will find his voice very sexy. To me, I wrote down that he sounds like the voice on the other end of the phone in like Phone Booth or Scream.
Yeah.
Like very serial killer on the phone to me.
Yeah, I found nothing wrong with his voice, but I found that he had a weird way of pronouncing things, and maybe that was an attempt to do like kind of a bit of an accent because he is Finnish.
Yeah.
And that is a big part of the plot. But so that may have been part of it, but the way that he pronounces her voice, it's Vera. It's never Vera. It's just Vera. And it gets so weird after a while. It's like, dude, you can't even,
it's like,
pronounce
it's
her
like
name.
True Blood, where he's like,
yeah.
Suki.
Suki. Yeah. I got, that kind of vibe. Vampire Bill.
Vampire Bill. Oh gosh, what a great show. I actually just started rewatching that again on HBO Max, so I am living my best life, clearly.
I'm glad that I watched that show after it had all come out, because I would have been really annoyed to wait a week for some of those episodes to it then be wrapped up in 2 seconds and then a character building episode. I felt like that was a lot of that show.
That was one of those shows that when it was first coming out and airing, like I would go over to my girlfriend's house who had HBO and we would watch, every Sunday night. And it was really funny because her dad and her brother would usually like be there watching too, and her dad would like fall asleep in the recliner while we were watching and be like snoring during these like super graphic sex scenes, and we're just like all like giggling. Like, I don't know what's worse, the fact that he's like sleeping through this, or like the fact, like, would it be worse if he was awake while we were watching this too?
Probably better he's asleep, just prevents that awkwardness. He's knocked out.
Exactly. No, it was so funny. But yeah, lots of good True Blood and Sookie and Bale memories.
They're married in real life.
I know, that's so precious. I love that. But this one, Cal, yeah, I there were times where his voice, and I think the problem is we don't actually, this is where I'm going to tell everybody that there's zero sex in this book whatsoever. We don't get a kiss. Like, this is very much a digital love story. Like, when I picked the theme digital love, I did not imagine it to be to this extreme, but they meet in person for the very first time at the end of the book.
And he says, "Hello, Vera."
And that's the first time where we hear him speak, like, not through a phone. Like, she always sounds normal. He's the only one that we actually like hear through the phone all the time.
Yeah, there's no romancing in this book.
Well, I think there's plenty of romance. It's just not sexual. Like, I mean, I think that there's still, like, when we give our ratings at the end, I think that there'll be heart and humor ratings, but I don't think there'll be anything for heat. Like, it's going to be a big not applicable.
Very cold, very, very much the lack of heat in this.
It's kind of that, honestly. I mean, and maybe it's weird because you're an IT guy and you don't think about this, and you're married, but also, like, for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, wouldn't this just be like such a fantasy? Like, you call somebody for help and then you begin this like blossoming friendship relationship. Like, it's kind of like porn. Like, I mean, it's sort of like the whole setup for, I feel like, a lot of porn.
Oh no,
is like
my website's not working. Yeah.
Let me boot up for you.
Update your operating system.
I don't know if I know enough like computer website terminology to really give a lot of good one-liners for this one, but glitching. I like that, glitching. Something about fixing your glitch. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I like the whole idea of it just because I'm like, wouldn't that be a great way to meet someone? Like, because people used to meet in person, and they do that in movies and TV shows where it's like they just run into each other. So I don't know, there's a part of me that does long for that whole natural connection that the two of them clearly have. But especially when the theme is digital love, I kept thinking, okay, obviously we're gonna have all sorts of books that are all about like dating apps and online, love stories. And this one stood out to me as being so different, like a different version of digital love. And it felt kind of like a throwback, like almost something like You've Got Mail, or, something where it's like, oh, people talk on the phone. That's right. I forget that we do that.
Yeah. I mean, anytime I see a phone call come in on my phone, I'm like, oh my God, what do they want?
Telemarketer.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost always a telemarketer. Scam likely. It's really the only person that calls me.
Maybe I should be answering my telemarketers so that we can fall in love.
See, Kelly, you gotta take those leaps, and you gotta see if maybe that person on the other end is your Cal.
Yeah, Cal with a K. Cal with a K, who, by the way, is also named Fred, and Vera, who also goes by BB from her family. I was just like, wait a second. No wonder there's like a mix-up going on. We've got two characters who have like two names each.
That
was a lot.
It was a lot. I definitely did not see that part coming, though.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, this one, I feel like the development in this book was really, really well done because
Mm-hmm.
I'm somebody who loves watching and reading mysteries and trying to guess, the killer. And so
Mm-hmm.
as I'm listening to this book, she would keep dropping little things like, oh, he goes to his friend for advice or whatever, but like we don't really know what the friend's name is. And then Vera's talking to her brother about advice and he calls her BB and not Vera. And I'm like, okay. And he keeps recommending Fred. And I'm like, okay, well, wait a second. We're getting to the point where I feel like this is one big, like, convoluted, not a love triangle because it's the two of them, but the brother like trying to set them up. But how would that work if he's got a different name and she's got a different name and surprise, they just have multiple names?
It's like a love triangle that ended up not just being a line. That's not really
Yeah.
a shape. It's like, oh, it's been us the whole time.
We've been in a love square with ourselves.
I mean, it worked out, but yeah, it was. Yeah, no, it felt like they wrapped up all of there's really no loose ends at the end of this book. They wrap up everything pretty neatly. So that's satisfying.
I kept waiting for I was like, the one loose end that I was waiting for them to wrap up, and they did finally get to, like, at the very end, was the whole thing about the fact that Cal's been getting these, like, mysterious emails where somebody is threatening the life of his cat and trying to, like, extort money from him. And I was like, wait a second. I've got like 30 minutes left in this audiobook. I need to know who's trying to kill the cat.
I actually found myself thinking the exact same thing at that exact part where they clear that up real quick, and you're like, oh, okay. At the same time, this also seems very dangerous because it seems like it turns out it is his
stepbrother
that was threatening his cat to, I guess, invest in a pyramid scheme. I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems dangerous to hire this guy because this guy does not seem like he's very stable, and he does not seem like the type of person you want to work for your company. But hey, he's a nice guy.
I agree. And I love that Cal got to get some closure with his dad because there's this whole story about how, his dad's from Finland, his mom is American, and he spent his whole life being shuttled back and forth across the world, like not just to like go visit somebody like for the summer, but like he would spend a year in each place, like alternating years. He would always be homeschooled. I'm like, oh my God, no wonder you're like an introverted man who works at home on his computer. Like I wouldn't know how to begin going about like meeting people if like that had been your life.
Yeah, and that definitely seemed like that gave him. I mean, it makes sense why he does what he does. IT's the nice thing about IT is you can kind of do it from anywhere, so he can always stay home.
Yeah, I agree. I loved that about him. I really liked, and he's definitely what I would think of as what we call a cinnamon roll hero in romance. Like he's soft and squishy on the inside, but. He definitely had a lot more, softer spoken traits that like I feel like we don't see enough in male heroes in romance, just because typically we read a lot of alpha men, a lot of very loud, buff, gruff guys. And he makes it very clear. He's like, I'm okay. Like I've got like brown hair and I'm like tall. So I'm just like, okay, we got like a real dude. Got it.
Yeah. It's nice to see a little bit of nerd representation there.
Yeah, for real. This totally has like such a great setup to being like a rom-com that you could watch. Like I could see the film version of this for sure.
There's also a scene where Vera's like, I imagined I was in a rom-com. And it's like, well, you kind of are.
Yeah. That whole moment where she's like, okay, what would like rom-com movie version of Cal be like? And what would rom-com Vera be like? Vera and I have a lot in common. Vera and I wonder about a lot of things. She has had like a bunch of different jobs, a bunch of different passions, and I love that Cal is like the first one to tell her like, well, that's not like a bad thing. Like, you tried all
Mm-hmm.
these things, and because you tried all of them, it led you to what you're doing now. And I think a lot of people who change careers or freelance or jump around from place to place get a lot of shit from people. So I loved
Mm-hmm.
that he was so embracing and encouraging of that, of for her to just be herself.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something especially for our age group and our generation of kind of a jack of all trades, master of none,
Yes.
and moving between different jobs and not really finding things that you can stay at for a long time, but
Yeah.
work for the current time and just kind of moving where the money is, I guess, for a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I think that's kind of like the wave of the younger millennials and like beginning of like Gen Z, where it's kind of like, well, we're not necessarily focused on finding a career that will last you for
Yeah.
the next 30 years. And there's nothing wrong. I can't imagine doing anything like one thing for the next 30 years. That sounds really boring to me.
Yeah, or falling ass backwards out of high school and into a 50-year career that you then retire from.
Oh,
I think that ship sailed.
yeah. And you know what? If that's somebody else, like if that's what you want, like fantastic. And if
Hmm.
it works for you, great. Because obviously, some people, I think it's just all about like how you place your values. Like, do you
Hmm.
think more about like, well, I need stability. I want to have a way to provide for the family that I want to have. I want to have the same schedule every day. Like, if that's like top of your list, great. Go do the whole 9 to 5 thing for the next 30 years. Nothing wrong with that.
I think definitely the job market kind of, and it made it feel very realistic in that sense. Like that's something I could identify with both of these characters about, is that they
Yeah.
kind of,
Very modern.
they kind of do what works for them for work. It's more of like a gig thing.
Oh, and can we
Um,
talk about how cool Date in a Box is? Because I'm like super into that idea.
yes. Yeah, I actually listening to this, I was like, I love that idea. Where can I subscribe?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's an
I
awesome
love the
idea for
whole
sure.
like the whole subscription box thing is just fantastic. Like I mean I
Mhm.
know that we both have dabbled in our meal box deliveries for sure.
Which, yeah, those are great. And
Love
I've done a
them.
few of them. Like I did, oh, what's the name of it? Loot Crate. I did that for a while. That one was kind of hit or miss. It was like just like
Okay.
nerd collectibles and stuff.
Love it. Love it.
And I've done a few other like subscription boxes, or at least like tried, the trial or whatever one they give you.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of them are kind of cool, some of them are kind of hit or miss, but I feel like this is actually a pretty good idea, really.
I'm into it. I'm super I've done like I've done the FabFitFun box, which I feel like you see advertised everywhere.
Oh, okay.
And I've done several like book related boxes. And I love those. And then now I'm an ambassador for the romance happy hour book box babes. So I get some swag from them every month. But no, I love this idea, this whole date in a box, especially because she offers so many different options, like for
Hmm.
what you like. Is it for a couple? Is it for friends? Is it a care package? Is it like a get well soon package? I feel like we see so many of these box subscriptions popping up every day. And
Hmm.
this is one that I think is so cool. Like
Yeah.
what would be your like go-to, like if you were building a date in a box for like you and Michelle, like what would it be?
See, I think I would want some of the help of like cool ideas they
Okay.
might have. Because definitely in the quarantine age that we're in, you can't really go out and do stuff. So you got to kind of make it work
Yeah.
at home. So I feel like, especially this last year, that would be a fantastic service to have, so that you could,
It's true.
hang out at home, but have a little, have fun, have a nice date night thing.
I've seen a bunch of people like asking online for like, oh my gosh, it's my, somebody's birthday coming up, and like I don't know what to get them. Like I don't know what to do because like, we can't go places. And I totally feel this because like in the last few years I've made a point of gifting a lot more like experiences, especially with my family. Like I took my my dad fell in love with escape rooms because I got us tickets to go to an escape room one time, and we did like, you know, the painting parties and I don't know what else we went to a cooking class. But when you're at home, it's a whole new challenge. But I have seen like some people doing like virtual cocktail kits, which I think sound kind of cool. Is like they send you all the supplies to like make a specific cocktail, and like there's like a virtual like bartending class. So I think that could be like a fun one. But yeah, I don't know, like something to do at home as a date night that's like different. That's like a box that we need for sure.
Someone make it.
Yeah.
I will subscribe.
We're giving you ideas. We're already telling you that we will subscribe to it. You've got 2 customers. Oh, I'm sorry. Clients already.
Yes, that's very important.
It's true. It's true. She's very specific in the story that we call them clients and not customers. I had no idea, but alrighty. Well, what else, Adam? What else did you like or maybe not so like? It's absolutely acceptable to have petty notes on this podcast as well.
So I will say that overall the IT stuff is actually pretty accurate as far as dealing with right there in the front where not updating your computer because you don't want to be off and restarting forever or lose your browser tabs. I can't tell you how many people I deal with that do that. And actually IT people are some of the worst people about this. I know my boss in my IT department has an insane amount of tabs open at once and will like start crying basically if the browser crashes or shuts down or something and she loses all of them.
Yikes.
Because she has so much stuff pulled up at once. I also can identify with Vera of being just so pissed off at a company that you stay on hold for a ridiculous amount of time out of spite. I think we've all been there.
And doing all the stuff that you're doing like while you're on hold, like she paints her nails, she goes to get a bagel.
As you're like cursing, you're like, these sons of bitches, they better pick up. And you're listening to the whole music.
That there's bad music. Yeah, I was about to say, you know that there's bad music playing the whole time.
This story actually starts out with the like bad hold elevator music, so that's already, you know, that might be
very
a trigger warning for some people.
Yeah, I like it. Well, and you mentioned the whole like having a million browsers opened. It reminded me of like I just had this conversation with somebody about, are you someone who keeps your desktop clean, or do you have like 80,000 files like on your desktop computer, like they cloud the background?
I have dealt with a lot of people who have that. I try to keep mine fairly tidy, like keep them to the edges, but there's some people's computers that I have gone on. You can't even see the desktop background because there's so much shit on the screen, so many shortcuts and all this stuff. And it's like, how can you find anything on here? I don't even understand.
Have you ever, like Cal in this book mentions, have you ever like screen shared with somebody and like found something really inappropriate on their computer?
Never anything like super inappropriate. But I have definitely had people where I've remote connected to them and they've kind of forgotten that I'm still connected and they'll start, you know, like checking through emails or something like that. And it's like, hey, I'm still here. Hang on a sec. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Not looking at lingerie or sex toys.
Not just watching porn or anything, though. Yeah.
That might actually have been the steamiest thing in the entire book, is that she starts looking at something for one of the dates in a box, and she's looking at like sex toys and stuff, and he's like, oh.
Yeah, and you know what's funny too is like they mentioned that, and then like they use like language occasionally in the book, and I was like, okay, so they can say fuck in this book, they just don't actually fuck in this book. Okay, I got it. We're clear. Because I just kept thinking, okay, I feel like this, I will say, I think the one missed opportunity is phone sex, especially when you're talking to somebody who like makes their, you know, living on the phone. I mean, obviously not, because we find out he's the CEO of this company that she's building a website with. But as the customer service rep, I was like, oh, no phone sex? Are you serious?
Yeah, I kept feeling like it was going to go in that direction, and then it never did. So yeah, that was, I don't know. It just, there was zero of it. zero any kind of like steaminess really in this book. So if you're listening to it, not reading it for that purpose, you will be disappointed.
I will say, though, I do think it felt natural, like as
Mm-hmm.
much as I would have loved to have a phone sex scene. And you know what? In a different version of this book, I think it totally could have been there. But in this specific book, the fact that it ends with them saying like their first words to each other in person, I was like, okay, that's cute.
Yeah,
but I like it.
It kind of felt like kind of a throwback kind of romance thing.
Yes.
You know, where it's like, you know, that like literally the happy ending is them finally meeting, you know,
It's
in
You've
real
Got
life.
Mail.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
It's You've Got Mail, but like for the millennial generation, and like they can text and call and stuff instead of just sending, what was it, AOL emails?
Or AIM, you know, talking on AIM at all hours. I remember video chatting was like a very new thing that never worked.
Yeah, I was never allowed to have AIM because my parents were like, you can't go into those chat rooms, like people will steal you.
Back in the days when it was, you know, never tell anybody your real name on the internet because, you know, you're gonna get got. And then now it's like everyone, you know, here's a picture of, you know, me naked and I'm posting it on Facebook. So yeah, and my name.
I know. Yeah, and my name, and I'm tagging where I am.
Where I am currently.
I've been watching a lot of true crime documentaries lately, and I'm just
you and Michelle
wow.
both. Did you see that SNL like 2 weeks ago with the murder?
About
murder
like
shows?
Yeah, love them. Love the murder shows.
I was just staring at Michelle the whole time. She's like, "What?"
Hey, you listen to My Worst Date too, so you are absolutely on the murder train too.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't like watch it for hours on end the way she can. It is interesting, but it's like, oh my god.
Yeah,
horrible.
I'll go through phases where it's like I won't watch any of it, but then when I do, like yesterday, I watched like 4 2020 episodes back to back, and they were all like horrific true crimes that I just was like, why am I watching this still?
Yeah, oddly enough, it's the thing Michelle watches to like relax, and it's also usually the thing she'll watch either when I have to go out to work somewhere or when she can't sleep. So I don't know how that's comforting, but
they help me fall asleep.
Yeah, I don't know. Teach their own, I guess, on that.
I fell asleep to one the other night about that guy who was an Uber driver was like driving around like just shooting random people for like a night in, I think it was like in Michigan or Missouri or something too, and I was just like, what? And then he said that like the Uber app like turned into the devil and it made him do it, and
yikes.
I was like, what? Oh god, yeah. And then I go from like watching something like that to listening to like a charming book like this.
I don't know. I could have easily gone to serial killer territory with Cal.
It's true. It could have, but it didn't. And it was very, very cute. But all right, Adam, do you have any more notes before we move on to giving this book a few grades?
I can say that your car battery dying because you've been sitting idling on the side of the freeway for a couple hours. Yeah, you're an idiot. I can't say I felt very sorry for her in that, because it's like, yeah, what did you think was going to happen? Yeah, don't make phone calls like this when you're like driving out and about and you need to use your computer.
No,
like, wait till you're home.
I mean, I appreciate her trying to like fill her time while she's on hold, but I'm like, when I'm on hold with somebody, like the last time I was on hold for a long period of time was like when I was calling the IRS, and I just like went around my apartment, like, you know, tidying up. And
you didn't go on an adventure out across state lines. Yeah. Don't do that.
Oh gosh. And you know what? When they order like takeout for each other, I was just like, wait, you're telling me he gets like this bomb ass meal of like a bunch of different things, and she's getting a quesadilla and rice and beans? Like that just, it just didn't suit me.
So there was a whole big thing about whether or not this was catfishing. So what do you think about it being catfishing or not?
In regards to like the fact that he's like a, millionaire, bajillionaire CEO of the company and he didn't tell her?
I guess, yeah.
I don't know if it's so much catfishing as it is the fact that like this was the one thing other than his kind of serial killer voice that like rubbed me, I don't even want to say the wrong way, but it just got annoying after a while, was the fact that every time he's about to tell her or she's about to tell him that she likes him or whatever, every single time they get interrupted. It goes from like, Vera, and then all of a sudden, oh no, the cat fell, or oh no, this happened. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, like literally they end probably at least 5 phone calls that way. And
yeah.
it was just so much that I'm like, okay, I don't know if it's him not telling her or if it's just the fact that literally like anytime they tried to say something honest, it gets cut off. And he eventually, I did like that near the end when he does tell her, I like you. He literally answers the call and is like, I like you. I want to go out with you. I want to date you. Like, and she's like, what? And I'm like, okay, this is what should have happened like 5 phone calls ago.
Yeah. It started to get a little bit ridiculous. You're like, oh my God, like just stay on the phone for literally about another 30 seconds and you guys could clear all this up real quick. And they never did.
I do like though that it doesn't become a major thing. Like when she does find out, she's like at first kind of like, whoa, what, huh? But then she reads the email he sent to her clarifying everything and they have like a normal conversation about it on the phone. It's not like her attacking him or accusing him of doing something. So I did like that even though it was a misunderstanding, which we see so often in romance, it was solved in like a normal human way very quickly.
Yeah. And I don't know if I think catfishing usually has more of like a negative connotation. Like people are representing themselves and they're worse in person than they are digitally or whatever.
Right.
I don't know, maybe she got like caviared or something. It's like, better than you expected. I mean, because you think you're talking to do you think you're talking to like, level 1 customer service guy and you're actually talking to like the millionaire CEO of it. So, I mean, that's an upgrade.
I feel like it's, I don't know if catfishing is, I don't want to say it's done with like malicious intent, but I feel like most of the people who do catfish do it on purpose. Like they're very much like, I'm going to lie about myself to make myself seem better than I am to this person. And I don't think that was ever his intention. And so because of that, I don't think I would think of it as catfishing.
And I actually have to say, as, a person who works in IT, I would definitely be more, I guess, like motivated to go with a company where the CEO of the company does do something like this. Because the reason that he ends up talking to her is because he's the CEO of the company, but he's also working the customer service line because he's been hearing about problems, but his employees are kind of not wanting to report it to him because you don't want to tell the boss that their website sucks. So he's been fielding phone customer service calls to be able to try to kind of get an honest answer out of people. And that's actually something I think is actually pretty admirable for a company to do.
Yeah.
Because it shows they actually
care. He's clearly a good business owner. Like, I'm like, I would want to build a website with this dude for his, commitment to his company and like his his clients. It's clients, not customer. Clients, I don't know what it is. Clients to me makes it feel like sex work. Like it almost sounds like these are my clients, and I'm like, hey, okay, but also I don't know why that's like the vision I have is like Heidi Fleiss being like, here are my clients. That was one of my initial hesitations with audiobooks was I was like, how am I going to take notes? Like, how am I going to remember certain scenes and certain moments? And
you can't exactly highlight stuff.
Yeah, especially when it comes to the segzerps, which thankfully wasn't a problem with this
there wasn't
because
any.
we don't have any. Oh, gosh. Well, that's okay. All right, Adam, let's go ahead and give this book a few grades. And I can say that we typically grade for heart, humor, and heat, but I'm going to go ahead and say that heat's off the table for today. And we will be... That's, it's fine. It is what it is. We'll be grading on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the very best that it could possibly be. So let's start with heart. What do you think?
Having not really listened or read any other romance books, I would give it a 10 because I did feel like they had a pretty good connection. I felt like the actors talking to each other had a believable chemistry. So yeah, no, I felt that was it was pretty good. It was up there.
Yeah, and I also think that there's some great heart between the family as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like just sort of like, her kind of like reconciling, not that they're in a fight, but like with her parents and her brother and, making sure that they're supporting her for the right reasons and everything. So I, as somebody who has read a lot of romance, I would put this at a 9 or a 10. Like I thought the heart was there, and like it has to be for them to stay on the phone with each other and like keep having these conversations. Like it has to be a high heart rating, because that's what they're getting out of it. They're not getting anything else out of it, other than a business relationship, I guess. But yeah, I think it's a high heart rating for sure. Okay, how about humor?
I would put that at maybe like a 7 or 8. It definitely had its funny moments. And it was also some pretty like awkward moments, but I think that was also kind of the point.
Yeah, I like funny awkward too. I'm not opposed to funny awkward.
Yeah, it was I found it entertaining. The banter between the two characters, or kind of like their internal. I feel like a lot of their internal monologues about the situations they're dealing with, felt pretty accurate. To how I would feel and stuff like that in some of those situations.
I think there was one moment where, and I can't remember what it was, but I think there was at least one moment where I kind of said to myself, like, ooh, this is one of those like cringy, awkward moments that I'm sure some people find funny, but like I get very uncomfortable watching things where people are also very uncomfortable. Like I'm just like, oh God, like this is why I could never watch like American Idol auditions, is because like there would always be the people who were like so bad and you're like, oh my God, I feel so embarrassed for you right now that like this is and so I want to say there was 1 or 2 moments like that, but other than that, I'm with you. I thought it was awkward in a fun way, very cute, great banter. So I think I'll go ahead and give it an 8.
I would agree.
And I'm realizing after having given our ratings that I forgot to ask you at the beginning of our recording what your experience with reading romance has been before this point.
So 0. It's generally not my genre at all. Very much.
You didn't read Michelle's cowboy books when we did our podcast together?
Believe it or not, no. She did tell me about some parts of it, though. It sounded very funny.
Yeah.
Was that where have all the cowboys gone? Was that one?
That was the first one, and she has been on 3 podcast episodes, and they have always been cowboy books written by the same author.
The resident cowboy expert.
I guess so. But before reading, or I guess listening to this book, had you did you have any thoughts specifically about the genre, or was there a reason you hadn't given it a go before?
I think pretty much all of my preconceived notions of romance books are just, the stereotypes of romance books you have. It's like the weird ones in the, like, I don't even know if they have these in grocery stores anymore, but like the magazine and book section. And it's, all those ones with all these dudes that look like Fabio on the front,
Mm-hmm.
That's, and just, the stereotypes of those types of books. That was pretty much my only notion before.
Fucking Fabio.
All of those dudes look like him on the front. Yeah.
It's either Fabio or 50 Shades of Grey is what I get 90% of the time on this podcast. And I'm just like, when was the last time you saw an actual like Fabio romance cover? Like, I mean, I know that there are a lot of them with like burly men, baring their chests and stuff. And like, that's still out there. I get it. But when was the last time anybody really saw Fabio on the cover of a book, you know?
And I feel like the 50 Shades of Grey, there's probably like a million ripoffs of that now.
Yeah, and a lot of them are much better than 50 Shades of Grey. The ripoffs are. I mean, it's just it's a fan fiction of a fan fiction, like, oh golly. But yeah, no, that's totally fine. So having read, or again, listened to Call Me Maybe, have any of your opinions changed?
I think, yeah, I mean, this was much more on the at least this book was much more on the kind of the chemistry between them and them getting to know each other, as opposed to, you know, more of the steamy sex things you would expect to be in a romance novel, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And so do you think after listening to this one, you would give another romance book or audiobook a try?
I don't know if I would read it on my own, but if I was, read it for a podcast, I certainly would.
Not even if it was another, I'm trying to think of what would be like the perfect romance for you. Like there would have to be, I feel like something futuristic would be good for you.
Sci-fi is generally my books of choice if I'm going to read anything.
Okay.
I have to say one thing about this book that was particularly funny is that I kept imagining is because their first date is them disassembling Vera's booth. So it's just, hot booth disassembling action. Too hot for this audiobook because they end right before it. But yeah.
That is a good way to think about it, of like what comes after the book ends. Like it's, oh, you're here. Oh, well, and doesn't he arrive to her booth at the expo like in the middle of the day? I'm like, bruh, you're gonna have to sit around and wait for her to finish working.
Yeah, I think it is. It's towards like the middle of the day or something like that when he finally gets there. So it's just gonna be a lot of sitting around, and then I guess like wrapping power cables sensually later. Folding up tablecloths and chairs.
That's true love.
Yeah,
that's true love.
Hot car loading
True
action. Putting all the stuff back into a car.
True love is sitting around and wrapping cables and loading up the car after a day at the expo.
And having done conventions.
That's
and
the
things,
epilogue.
It's really just a bunch of guys in polo shirts and cargo shorts cursing and doing all that stuff. So
see that it sounds like you've got a fanfic to write after reading this book. Oh, Adam. Well, I think we've come to a close, and I'm so glad that you decided to give both romance and audiobooks a try by joining me to discuss Call Me Maybe by Cara Bastone. And, I feel like I'm going to have you back, if nothing else, just to make sure you read another romance novel.
Well, I didn't even read this one. I listened to
it. Is that the key? Do you think it would be easier to like read another one if it's just listening to it versus sitting down and reading it? Where do you stand on that?
I guess I don't really have any strong preferences either way. I did like that this one seemed shorter than a lot of other audiobooks, like kind of scrolling through the Audible app. Because I think this one was only it was like 7 or 8 hours, I think. Not
even like it said it was only like 5 hours and like 50 minutes.
Oh, okay. I might have been thinking of another one. It felt very much like it's more like a novella than an actual full length novel.
Yeah.
Which I liked. I mean, it kind of keeps it to the point, I guess. Even with those 3 or 4 chapters.
If it's a novella that you're looking for, that seems like you might enjoy our holiday reads come Boobsmas 2021. So maybe that's the key right there.
That could be. And I don't know, I feel like I don't have as much time to read as I once did. So things that are shorter and easier to digest are definitely good.
I hear you. Well, if you want to hear Adam and I talk more alien-themed romance, you can head on over to our Patreon for a little bit of bonus content. And believe me, that is a bonus for all to be had. But in the meantime, I also wanted to mention that Adam is an amazing photographer, and so I hope everybody checks out his work. Adam, where can the people find and follow you?
The people can find me on Instagram at photography.by.acm.
Yes, and he's got gorgeous, gorgeous pictures, lots of nature, which Especially those pictures of like the trees in the deserts. Oh my God. Desert, not desserts. Definitely gives me such great California vibes. So yeah, I hope everybody checks out his work. But thank you so much again for joining me today, Adam.
Well, Kelly, it was a pleasure, and anytime you want, I will be here.
Okay. And until then, I'm sure you'll get an IT call from me at some point in the near future about some problem I'm having.
Oh my God, the microphones. Yeah, that too. I'm here to help.
Yeah. Fabulous. Thanks so much for listening. Boobies and Newbies is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. You can follow Boobies and Newbies on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Boobies Podcast.